Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's mother-in-law is trying to scam him. My wife's mom demands to bill me for her broken jewelry. Am I the jerk? My sister and I planned a big family vacation months in advance. We rented a large house near the lake, something big enough for both of our families to stay comfortably. It was supposed to be 2 relaxing weeks. The first week, my wife's parents would stay. The second week, my sister's family would join. It was me, my wife, our 1-year-old, and our rescue dog, Daisy. Then my sister, her husband, and their 2 kids, who are 5 and 3. Everything looked perfect on paper. Daisy is a sweet dog, but a little anxious around new people. She's fine with the kids, and she adores my brother-in-law. She's just wary of strangers. So before we arrived, I made it clear to everyone that we would keep Daisy leashed around my in-laws and that either my wife or I would always be present when she was out. Everyone agreed. 2 days in, my mother-in-law decided the rules didn't apply to her. She's one of those people who claims to be a dog person because she's owned dogs her whole life. The kind who ignores every bit of common sense and insists animals just love them. I tried to be polite. That afternoon, Daisy was resting by my chair when Karen, let's call her what she is, walked up with a treat in her hand. She smiled and asked if she could give it to Daisy. I said yes, but I explained exactly how to do it safely. Crouch down so she would not overtower her. Move slowly and let Daisy come to her first. Karen nodded like she was listening, then immediately she did the opposite. She leaned straight over Daisy, arms stretched out like she was reaching for a toddler. Daisy jumped up in surprise. Not an attack, just a scared reaction. I grabbed her leash and I pulled her back right away. No one was hurt, but I could see irritation flash across Karen's face. I told her calmly that for the rest of the week, it might be best if she did not try to interact with Daisy. She gave me that tight little smile that people use when they're offended but don't want to admit it. I figured that was the end of it. A couple of days later, the others went out for the afternoon. It was just me, our baby, one of the kids, and my in-laws in the house. I was on the floor stacking blocks with my son when I heard Karen and her husband talking loudly at the dining table. It was that kind of loud where it feels like they actually want you to hear it. They were saying things like, "We'll have to get it fixed when we get home," and "maybe we can find someone who won't charge too much." I tried to ignore it, but the conversation was vague enough to be bait. I finally asked what they were talking about. Karen looked up with this innocent face and said her ankle bracelet had broken. She didn't know when. Maybe when she bumped into something. Maybe when she was playing with the kids. Or maybe when Daisy jumped on her earlier in the week. I said, "Oh, that's unfortunate," and I left it there. Nobody brought it up again for the rest of the trip. We had 4 more days together and not a single mention of the bracelet. She smiled and chatted like nothing had happened. Fast forward 2 weeks after the vacation. My phone buzzed and it was my wife. She said her mom had gotten the bracelet repaired and now wanted me to send her $100 for it. I was honestly shocked. I called Karen directly because I wanted to hear her explanation. She told me she believed my dog must have broken it when she jumped up. I reminded her that she ignored my clear instructions on how to approach Daisy and that she had even said at the time she wasn't sure when it broke. I also pointed out that she had plenty of opportunities to bring it up during the trip. She waited 2 weeks, never said a word in person, and now expected me to pay. I told her flat out that I wasn't. If she had been honest with me at the time, I probably would have helped her just to keep the peace. But sending me an invoice after the fact? No chance. She didn't like that answer. Apparently, she called my wife right after and said I was rude and refusing to take responsibility. My wife called me back, apologizing for even passing along the message because she knew how her mom could be. Karen wasn't done though. She started telling extended family that my vicious dog had destroyed her precious jewelry. It was ridiculous. Daisy's a 20-pound rescue who gets scared by the vacuum cleaner. Eventually, I sent one message through my wife for her to pass along. If she wants to talk about it again, tell her I'll need a receipt for the bracelet, the repair, and a written statement saying the dog did it. Otherwise, the matter is closed. That shut it down immediately. My wife said her mom went quiet after that. Apparently, her dad told her to drop it and stop embarrassing herself. She never tried to talk to me directly again. The funny thing is, a few weeks later, we found out she had a friend who fixed jewelry and just made up the $100 price, hoping I would be too polite to question it. At the next family gathering, she kept her distance. She didn't say a word to me, and she didn't go near Daisy either. So, am I the jerk for refusing to pay? Not the jerk. That's classic Karen behavior. She ignored your clear instructions, scared the dog, and then tried to send you a bill like it was a business transaction. Even if the dog had broken it, which sounds almost impossible, it would have been her fault for leaning over when you told her not to. And $100? Please. I've had jewelry repaired for free before. She was just fishing to see if you'd pay without asking questions. You handled this perfectly. Calm, direct, and with receipts ready. Most people would have lost it halfway through that call. The "we'll get it fixed when we get home" line tells me that she was already planning that scam mid-vacation. You dodged a bullet with that one. However, it was a bit foolish to say you would have paid for it if they had communicated sooner or better. If they show that message to others, it could sound like you admitted the dog was at fault. Next time, stick to the facts and refuse to speculate. Still, not the jerk. So she ignored his instructions, scared the dog, then sent him a bill? And that $100 repair from her friend sounds more like creative accounting. Her story ended up breaking apart even easier than that bracelet did. Would I be the jerk if I stopped doing all the favors for my ex after he refused the one favor I asked? I'm 30, female. My ex-husband, Greg, who's 38, and I have 2 kids, Louisa, who's 9, and Ted, who's 7. We divorced about 5 years ago, and we have shared custody ever since. We've kept things civil. We don't fight about money, we've always split the kids' time evenly, and we've both made an effort to stay flexible when something comes up. Greg remarried a few years ago. His wife, Tessie, who's 38, has a little boy with him and another baby on the way. I'm getting married too to my fiancé, Luke, who's 36. We've been together for 3 years, and he's great with my kids. We have a group chat for all 4 of us, just to talk about the kids and logistics. Nothing personal, nothing messy. That setup worked fine until recently. When Tessie told me her C-section date was coming up, I immediately said I could take Louisa and Ted during their custody week. I figured they'd need some quiet time to recover and get settled with the new baby. I even offered to keep them another week after that. Tessie said that would really help, so we agreed. Then it came time for my turn to ask for help. Luke and I are planning a 3-week honeymoon. It's a dream trip we've saved for years to take, and it falls mostly on my custody weeks. So I reached out to Greg and asked if he could keep the kids for one of my weeks, since they'd already be with him right after the wedding. It wasn't a big ask. I've done far more for them over the years without hesitation. I sent him a full itinerary so he'd know where we'd be and how to reach us. Then I waited for him to confirm. A few days later, instead of a normal response, I got this long message from Luke. It was a long email that went in circles about how terrible it was for a mother to take a long vacation without her kids. It accused me of dumping Louisa and Ted on them just so I could go off and gallivant. It said I was selfish for asking a young mother to handle my kids while she was caring for her own babies. It was insulting from start to finish. For context, I've done a lot for them over the years, mostly to make things easier on the kids. I pick them up from school every day. During Greg's weeks, I drive them to his house because he works late and Tessie doesn't want to take their little boy out. I also take the kids to every doctor's appointment, school event, and activity since I work flexible hours and Greg doesn't. When Tessie had her first baby, I kept the kids for a full month. When Greg travels for work, I handle everything, including caring for their cat because Tessie doesn't want to change the litter box. I even let Greg borrow my old car after his accident. 7 months later, he still has it. And yet, when I asked for one favor, I got an essay tearing me down. Out of sheer frustration, I got petty after this, especially them acting as if we're constantly dumping the kids on them. So I went through the last 4 years of texts and made a spreadsheet of how many times either of us has asked the other to keep the kids and the duration on an Excel sheet. While we both have made these requests, they've done so for 87 nights. 52 times, and me 12 nights, 8 times. Obviously, this makes sense since they have a baby and I didn't send it to them or anything, but it was good to know that I'm not crazy. My friends are divided. Some said I should stop doing anything extra for them altogether. Others worried it would create tension that might hurt the kids. That's the only thing that kept me from pulling back completely. I love Louisa and Ted more than anything, but I'm starting to realize that what Greg and Tessie call co-parenting is really me carrying the weight while they act like I owe them. I'm seriously considering ending every unpaid favor that's not required by the custody agreement. No more driving their weeks. No more picking up their slack. No more cat duty. No more rescuing them when things get chaotic at their house. Would I be the jerk for finally drawing that line? You're not wrong at all. They've taken advantage of your kindness and expected you to keep doing it forever. The moment you needed something back, they showed their true colors. Drop the favors and keep things business only. People like that don't respect generosity. They just expect it. It's wild that they called you selfish for wanting 1 week off when you've done literal months of extra work for them. The young mother excuse is ridiculous too. Greg is the parent here, not just his wife. If he can't handle his own kids for 1 extra week, that's on him, not you. You've been way too nice for way too long. I'm glad you finally see how unbalanced this is. Stop doing everything. Stick to the custody schedule and let them handle their own household. It's not petty, it's self-respect. Update. My last post got way more attention than I expected, and reading through the comments made me realize how much I'd been overlooking. Turns out, I wasn't just being a good co-parent, I was being a free assistant. A lot of you pointed out how one-sided this whole setup was, and you were right. For context, Greg and I have a long history. We've known each other since childhood. We grew up on the same street, and we started seeing each other in college. When I got pregnant, he didn't run from responsibility. He stepped up, married me, and made sure I could finish school. He worked full-time while I studied, and he even covered my tuition. I'll never deny that. But after the kids came along, things changed. I was content with 2 kids, but Greg wanted more, and even therapy couldn't bridge that gap. I filed for divorce, not out of spite, but because it was clear we were on different paths. After the divorce, Greg stayed helpful. He helped me set up my new home, fix things around the house, and made sure the transition for our kids was smooth. When he eventually remarried, I was genuinely happy for him. I even covered for him and Tessie multiple times when they needed a break or time to settle in. The difference now is that it's no longer mutual. The appreciation and respect that used to exist are gone. After his long email, I was furious. I felt disrespected and unappreciated, but before I could send a response, Greg called. He started by apologizing. He said Tessie had written the email out of stress and that she had misunderstood my message. Apparently, she thought I was asking them to take the kids for 6 weeks instead of 1. I went back and reread my email. Sure enough, if you skimmed it with zero context, I could see how someone might confuse the timeline. Still, that didn't excuse the tone of the message. Greg admitted the email was inappropriate. He said Tessie had been overwhelmed lately, between her pregnancy, their toddler's behavioral challenges, and my daughter's ongoing medical needs. He asked if we could start fresh. I told him straight that the message wasn't just inappropriate, it was completely out of line. I asked him point blank if he actually agreed with anything Tessie wrote, and he said no. Then I laid out my decision. I told him I'd still take Louisa and Ted when Tessie had her C-section and keep them through my next custody period. That would give them about 10 days to recover, which was fair. But after that, I wasn't picking up extra responsibilities anymore. If they couldn't manage their household during their time, that was on them. I reminded him that he was the new baby's parent, not me, and that I wouldn't keep filling in for things that weren't mine to handle. Greg tried to argue that things were chaotic at home, that their toddler had frequent meltdowns and Tessie was exhausted. I told him that I understood, but those were their challenges to navigate. I've been patient for years, but the boundary line had to be drawn somewhere. Then I told him something that clearly shocked him. I said that from now on, I'd only be doing what's written in our custody agreement, nothing more. If I was picking the kids up from school, then he or Tessie could come get them from my house during his custody weeks. If they needed extra help because their house was too stressful or their schedule was tight, they'd have to figure it out. I also told them that if I noticed them starting to rely on me too heavily again, I'd consider filing for primary custody. That's when he went quiet. I think he finally realized I wasn't bluffing. He apologized again and said he'd take care of it moving forward. Tessie sent me a short text later that night apologizing too. It seemed genuine, but I didn't reply beyond a polite acknowledgement. I wasn't angry at that point, just done. To be honest, I think that apology was more about damage control than regret. You don't write something as vicious as that email unless you mean it, at least in the moment. I've learned a lot from this. For years, I kept saying yes because it felt like the right thing to do for the kids. But kindness shouldn't mean letting people walk all over you. Going forward, everything's by the book. I'll stick to the schedule, handle my side, and let Greg handle his. I'm not going to let their chaos spill into my peace anymore. For the record, I didn't fire back about the car, but I did let him know that he needed to figure out transportation soon because I had other plans for it. That car is supposed to go to a friend's stepdaughter when she gets her learner's permit. She's 15 and about to retake her test next week. Once she passes, the car is gone. As for the cat, I clarified that I wouldn't be cleaning the litter box again. I like the cat and I did it to help, but it's not my job. Greg and Tessie are adults with their own home and their own pets. They can manage. The truth is, I don't hate either of them. I just don't trust them anymore. They're about to have their hands full with the new baby, and I'm sure life will get more complicated for them. But that's not my burden to carry. I've spent years building a life where my kids feel secure and loved. That's all I can control. The rest is their problem now. Luke and I are focusing on our wedding, and after that our honeymoon in Japan. It's been on our bucket list for years, and I'm not letting anyone's guilt trip ruin it. My only priorities are my children, my peace, and the life I've worked hard to build. If Greg and Tessie can't respect that, then they'll just have to learn to manage without me. Greg sounds like someone who's used to being rescued. The minute you stopped fixing his messes, he panicked. I bet Tessie's apology was less about guilt and more about realizing they'd lose their free help. Stick to your plan. Update 2. It's been a couple of months since all that chaos, and things have finally calmed down, at least on my side. Greg and Tessie's world, though, still sounds like a circus from what I've heard. They've welcomed their new baby boy about a month ago. He's healthy, thankfully. I did take Louisa and Ted during that week, like I promised. Everything went smoothly. The kids got to visit their new baby brother, and they were excited to meet him. But of course, even that couldn't happen without some kind of drama. A week before Tessie's C-section, she texted me this long, confusing message saying that when I brought the kids to the hospital, I wasn't allowed to go upstairs. She said I needed to wait in the lobby and stay there until they were done visiting. She also said Greg would be busy and couldn't help them get upstairs. I was just like, okay? It didn't make sense. With their first baby, they had invited me to come meet the newborn myself. But this time, I wasn't even welcome to step into the elevator apparently. I didn't argue. I just asked Greg's mom to take the kids instead. She was happy to go and help, but when Tessie found out, she got upset. She said I had gone behind her back. At that point, I just let it roll off of me. I'm not interested in getting dragged into her moods anymore. After that, I stopped communicating with her altogether. I deleted the group chat and now only talk directly with Greg about anything involving the kids. Tessie still messages me now and then, but I don't respond unless it's something important about Louisa or Ted. I've noticed a strange calm ever since I made that change. My phone's quieter, my stress is lower. I hadn't realized how much of my time was being eaten up by her constant texts and demands. As for the kids, they're doing great. They know things are tense, but I don't talk about any of it around them. I let them stay kids. When they're with me, we focus on school, friends, and normal family life. The only thing that caught me off guard was something they said to Luke the other week. They mentioned that when their little brother has a meltdown, they just go upstairs or downstairs until things calm down. They said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal. Luke told me about it later, and it stuck with me. I didn't want them thinking that every time something hard happens, the solution is to escape. So I gently told them that they shouldn't just leave because things are uncomfortable. I told them they could always call me if they felt unsafe or overwhelmed, but that their brother was still part of their family. I didn't scold them. I just wanted them to understand empathy without taking on responsibility. I've made peace with the fact that Greg and Tessie are going to have their own struggles, and some of those might spill into the kids' lives. But that's something I'll handle if and when it happens. My focus now is keeping my own home stable. Now about the wedding, because that's the part that surprised me the most. Apparently, Greg and Tessie think they're invited. I have no idea why. Maybe because I went to theirs years ago. Maybe because they think we're still friends. But given everything that's happened, inviting them would be insanity. A mutual friend mentioned that Tessie even told people she assumed they'd be attending. When she heard about the wedding plans, she apparently said something like, "Well, of course we'll be there." I laughed when I heard that. Greg and Tessie are not coming. There's no world where I'd let that kind of tension walk into a room full of my friends and family. My wedding is supposed to be joyful, peaceful, and sacred. They don't get to be part of that. I don't plan on making a big statement about it. I'll just quietly not send an invitation. If they bring it up, I'll say it's because our relationship has shifted and I want to keep our interaction strictly about the kids. That's the truth anyway. Tessie apparently told someone that if I keep acting like this, they might take me to court for child support. She said the only reason they haven't done it yet is because I've been helpful. That made me laugh too. I make more money than Greg, yes, but child support doesn't just come down to income. I also have the kids more often, and I handle nearly every school and medical appointment. Even if they tried to take me to court, the numbers wouldn't work in their favor. I did take some of your advice though. I've started keeping detailed records of every overnight stay, every extra day I've had the kids, and every expense I've covered that technically should have been shared. I even color-coded it in a spreadsheet. Greg doesn't know that yet, but if they ever push things legally, I'll be ready. I also have a backup plan for our honeymoon. If for any reason Greg and Tessie try to pull something at the last minute, my friend and her husband are on standby to take the kids for the week. I'm not letting anyone ruin this trip. Luke and I have been dreaming about Japan for years, and we're not going to cancel it because of someone else's drama. Looking back, I think this whole situation taught me a lot. For the longest time, I believed being a good co-parent meant saying yes to everything. I thought keeping the peace meant never pushing back, no matter how much extra work it added to my plate. But that's not balance. That's just exhaustion dressed up as cooperation. Now I'm learning the difference. I still care about doing what's best for my kids, but that doesn't mean I have to make life easy for everyone else. I finally understand that real peace doesn't come from keeping quiet, but from knowing when to stop giving more than you should. My kids are happy, my home is calm, and for the first time in years, I feel like I'm actually living my own life again. If Greg and Tessie ever get their act together, great. If not, that's fine too. My door will always be open for the kids, but not for their chaos. You're absolutely right not to invite them. They're unpredictable, dramatic, and clearly still see you as a safety net. Your wedding should be peaceful, not another stage for their issues. I can't believe she actually thought she'd be invited. That's delusional. You've been way too generous already. Stick to your plan, keep your records, and let them sink or swim on their own. So after years of bending over backward, she finally stood up straight. Guess she realized keeping the peace was just code for doing everyone else's chores. Boundaries don't make you the bad guy. They just keep you sane. And honestly, nothing says growth like saying no and meaning it. ER patient demands to go home, eat, and shower before being treated. I work in a local hospital's ER, and let me tell you, if you ever want to see the full range of human behavior, just pull a weekend shift there. I've worked in emergency medicine long enough to know that people act strangely when they're scared. Some cry, some shut down completely, and some convince themselves that the rules of the hospital, or physics, just don't apply to them. This one happened recently on a Saturday night at the local ER, when everything that could be chaotic already was. The waiting room was packed, monitors were beeping, and every nurse looked like they were moving in fast forward. We had a steady stream of the usual cases: sprains, chest pain, dehydration, a handful of people who just didn't feel right and wanted to be sure. Then a woman came in on her own, no one with her, saying she wasn't feeling well. She wasn't in obvious distress, so she got triaged, checked by the doctor, and eventually placed in one of the ER rooms for further evaluation. Over a few hours, tests came back suggesting she needed to be admitted to the hospital for treatment. Nothing dramatic, but definitely serious enough to require monitoring. When the nurse told her she'd be moved upstairs, she suddenly announced that she wanted to go home first, to shower and get something to eat before being admitted. She said she'd come right back afterward. The nurse tried to explain calmly that once someone's admitted, they need to stay under hospital care. If she left, her admission would be canceled and she'd have to start the process from the beginning, checking in, waiting to be seen, being reassessed, everything. The woman didn't take that well. She said she wasn't a prisoner and she had a right to take care of herself. She wasn't wrong about the right to leave, but the timing and attitude told us that she didn't understand how much risk she was taking. The staff reassured her that she'd be able to eat once she was cleared to and that she could shower once settled into a room. But she wasn't hearing any of it. After a few minutes of back and forth, she said she was going home anyway. She gathered her things and walked out. No paperwork, no official discharge. We noted it, cleaned the room, and moved on to the next patient. A few hours passed. The night got busier. Then around midnight, she returned. Clean hair, new clothes, and a takeout bag in her hand. She went straight to the nurse's station and told us she was ready to be admitted now. When told that the room was no longer available and that she'd need to go through the process again, her expression changed from calm to angry. She couldn't understand why the hospital wouldn't just pick up where she left off. She argued that she had already been admitted and that it was unfair to make her wait again. The triage nurse tried, once more, to explain. The ER was full. She'd have to be seen by a doctor again before anything else could happen. There was no skipping the line, not even for someone who had been here earlier. When she pulled out her phone and actually dialed 911 from inside the ER, everyone nearby just froze for a second. We weren't shocked exactly, just tired. Things like that don't surprise you after a few years here, but they still make you stop and wonder how someone reaches that point. A few minutes later, dispatch radioed over that officers were on their way. 2 police officers arrived and asked what was going on. The woman launched into a story about how she had been admitted hours ago and that the hospital threw her out. The charge nurse gave the short, factual version. She had left against medical advice, her room had been reassigned, and now she needed to start over. The officer looked from the nurse to the patient and said, as gently as possible, "Ma'am, that's not how it works." She went quiet for a moment as if she hadn't expected that answer. Then she started to argue again, insisting she shouldn't have to wait, that she had already done all of it. But after a few more minutes, the officers gave her the same 2 options as before: check in and wait to be seen like everyone else, or leave. Eventually, she left. No yelling this time, no scene, just an exhausted shake of her head before she walked out the automatic doors into the night. We don't know what happened to her afterward. Maybe she went to another ER. Maybe she went home and decided to wait it out. I genuinely hope she's okay. But that night, as we reset the room and went back to work, everyone felt the same quiet frustration. I think it wasn't about entitlement, not really. It was about how fear makes people lose trust in the system, and sometimes in the people trying to help them. I've seen it hundreds of times. People come in scared, hurting, feeling powerless, and they try to take back control however they can. Some get angry, some leave, some call the police. But at the end of the day, hospitals aren't built for convenience, they're built for care. And care takes time. I had a medical issue recently and ended up in my local ER. After some tests, they decided I needed to be admitted to a larger hospital about 20 minutes away. I asked if I could just drive myself, but they said no. They didn't want me out of medical care even for that short time. That's when I realized it was more serious than I thought. They gave me 2 options: take the ambulance or leave against medical advice and start the process over. I chose the ambulance and let security know my car wasn't abandoned. Honestly, if you're in the ER, a shower or snack shouldn't be your main concern. As someone who's been there a few times, I've learned to just clean up before going and keep a small bag packed, because you never know when you'll end up being admitted. Had one like this last month. Woman got admitted for observation, then decided she was bored and went outside for a smoke break. Came back 3 hours later with a shopping bag and Starbucks, furious that her room had been given to someone else. She kept saying, "But my stuff's still in there." Ma'am, your stuff was a half-empty ginger ale and hospital socks. She really left the ER to go shower and eat and came back expecting her room like it was a hotel reservation? And when that didn't work, she called the cops on triage. Bold move, sister. Bold, but not very bright. You know you've peaked in entitlement when the police are the ones explaining hospital policy to you. My fiancé invited his ex-situationship for our wedding behind my back. I, 23 female, am getting married in January and just found out my fiancé, Mark, who's 25, invited his old situationship to our wedding without consulting me. For context, me and Mark met on a dating app 2 years ago after he broke up a relationship. To be honest, it's quite confusing what he and Tracy had. They met because of a mutual friend and started to develop feelings for each other. Mark told me they never dated and hooked up, but it was more than friendship. Until today, he keeps her love letters, gifts, and talks about her. Tracy and him tried to stay in contact after the breakup, staying friends, but she ghosted him after finding out that we started to date. From what I saw on her social media, she's in a relationship, so I'm not worried about her trying to get with my fiancé again. They haven't been in contact for 2 years, but he still has her number and email. I found out about him inviting her after I checked our guest list and I saw her name. I know Tracy is not a threat to our relationship, but Mark inviting her behind my back makes me feel bad about the whole wedding. He told me he doesn't feel anything for her, yet he made sure to send her an invitation. This is probably me being insecure, but my fear of him not getting over her is slowly creeping inside my heart. I don't want to lose him. He's probably not over her, especially since they were never a thing. For him, she might be the one that got away. If I were OP, I would have a very serious talk with him. OP. I don't get why he isn't over her, especially if they were never a thing. From what Mark told me, he was the one who didn't want a relationship since Tracy just started life. He went behind your back to invite someone whose love letters he kept. The fact he didn't talk to you about it is a red flag. If having her there is more important to him than you being comfortable at your own wedding, then you might need to postpone the wedding. She might not be a threat to your relationship, but it sounds like your fiancé's feelings are a threat. Tell him you don't want her there, and that's final, and he better rescind it, or you'll have to rethink the marriage, because starting a married life by going behind your back is a no-no. To be honest, you need to not stubbornly hold on to someone you can't trust, and you can't trust someone who does things behind your back. Update. After reading the comments and talking with friends, my heart finally understood Mark never really got over Tracy. In the beginning, I was in denial, but I went out with Tom, who's 24, his best friend of years, to understand what really happened between them. From what he told me, Tracy and Mark met because of some friends in common. She just got into the university and was 17 at the time, while Mark was already almost graduating. They stayed friends for 2 years, and feelings started to blossom. Mark was already working while she was still in college. He only wanted to formally date her after her graduation, so it was never a thing, even though they shared love letters, gifts, and shared almost every holiday together. Mark told me everyone from their old friend group thought they would get married since they were so sweet together, so their breakup was really unpredictable. Tracy was the one who broke up with Mark due to their religious values not lining up, as she wanted to save herself until marriage. In the end, they decided it was better to go separate ways and maybe try again a few years later. But after me and Mark started to date, Tracy realized that it was pointless to wait for him and started to see other people too, so she blocked him on everything except email just to have a clean beginning. In the end, I finally realized Mark is just hopeful that Tracy would come back to him due to their talks of trying again after a while. It honestly hurts so much, as I loved him so much. I still haven't confronted him since I'm so shaken up, but I don't know if this marriage will happen. I'm going to update once I calm down and confront him. Update. The wedding has been called off. My parents are the ones canceling everything for me. It's like I returned to my childhood when my mom and dad had to solve my problems. I confronted Mark after talking with Tom and made him aware of everything I've been dealing with. His reaction at the beginning was dismissive and was almost as if he was trying to escape from this situation. In the end, Mark said he never loved someone like Tracy because it was pure and innocent. Tracy was like a sunlight to him. Hearing the man you love admitting how much he loved another woman is so hurtful. During the talk, I started to cry, bawling my eyes out. Mark had the audacity to say he loves me, but it's a different kind of love. I asked why he invited her to our wedding, and he was speechless. Why he had to throw away our future for something in the past. It hurt so much. Mark told me he knew Tracy didn't block him on email since he was the one who helped her get her first job, and a lot of professional stuff was also involved. This is how he was able to send her our wedding invitation, but he meant no harm. When I asked what he meant with this, Mark just said he wanted to make her watch us together and realize what she lost because he was hurt that Tracy was pregnant and not married. The moment Mark mentioned about Tracy's pregnancy, a red alarm started to echo in my head. How did you know about her pregnancy? You said she blocked you everywhere. I could see panic in his eyes as he started to stutter. In the end, I made him give me his phone, and I found out that he had more than 5 accounts that he used to follow her. My stomach felt sick, and I felt like I was going to throw up. In the end, I decided to call off the engagement since he was such a creep. Mark threw himself on the floor asking for forgiveness and saying he loves me, just in a different way compared to Tracy, and was just hurt that she gave herself to someone else while he begged her countless times. This made me feel even more disgusted with him because he felt entitled to her. I also told Tracy everything and his accounts. I don't know if she saw my messages, but I hope she does. The jealousy I once felt for her transformed into pity, as no woman should go through what Mark has done. Mark wants to meet up with me and doesn't want to break up, but I'm just so tired. This is my last update, since I've already met up with Tracy and talked about what happened. Me and her met up at a cafe, and in the beginning I was really nervous, as I didn't know what her reaction was going to be. Her only reply was, "Hi, let's talk over a cup of coffee." When I was waiting for her, I could feel my back sweating, and overall lots of emotion. Tracy arrives, and I finally understood why Mark was so obsessed with her, as she's definitely one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. She's pretty in those pictures, but personally, she looks better. Tracy said hello to me and asked if I'm willing to go to her house to talk, since being outside for too long makes her really tired. We ordered some coffee to go, and it was super awkward. So now let's talk about what she told me. First of all, she apologized for being the reason why now I'm single, which I assured her it's not her fault. Tracy said she received the invitation but was simply not interested in participating in our wedding as she was already in a happy relationship and it's pointless to see a person from the past. With the story Tom and Mark told me, I got curious and asked about them staying friends as it sounded like she wanted to stay with him after the breakup, and it's the polar opposite of her behavior. Tracy was extremely uncomfortable with this question but still explained to me why she said that. In the beginning, she was really in love with Mark because he was her first love. She described him as a protector, someone trustworthy, handsome, and kind, as he always showered her with gifts and travels. Everything was fine and sweet, but over time, Mark really wanted to hook up, and she started acting sick just to avoid him. She said she had a sixth sense telling her not to do that. 2 weeks after they broke up, they started to talk again as she felt in debt with him as he helped her get a job in a prestigious company, and he spent a lot of money on her with trips, food, and presents. One of the gifts was a Rolex for her 18th birthday, which made me mad since he never spent so much money on me. So when Tracy found out me and Mark were seeing each other, she felt relieved and finally had a proper reason to block him everywhere since he was still sometimes hinting about them getting back together. In the end, I told her in the entire relationship, Mark would sometimes talk about her, and in the beginning it was kind of weird, but I just brushed it off since she was part of his story. I also talked about Mark's numerous accounts, and in the beginning she didn't believe me. But I showed her the accounts that I knew, which was creepy since they all had female names, followers, and pictures. All of them looked real. Her account is public, so I asked Tracy to make it private. She made a new account with her Korean name and deactivated the old one. We had fun and became friends. She's a really sweet person, and I saw how her boyfriend treated her like a queen. I'm happy she found love and got rid of Mark. Am I the jerk for telling my sister my support for her and my niece ends in January after I found out she's been lying? My sister, who's 25, has a 4-year-old. The baby daddy is the run-of-the-mill deadbeat, does not work, avoids court appearances, lives with his mother, and doesn't even have a state ID. I've been supporting my sister for 3 years. She was staying with our mom, but something happened to her, and now she lives in a retirement community, so she doesn't have the same amount of space. My mom asked me to make sure my sister is okay since she has the baby. I get it that she was young, and the father of her child played a good act. I do not blame her for that. So I cover childcare and rent for my sister. I'll spot her when she needs other stuff like school supplies, food, clothes for my niece. She's a manager at Target. When she has to work late, I'll let my niece sleep over. I generally had pickups because I get off at 5. She generally handles drop-offs. I will take care of dinner and my sister handles bath and bedtime. My mom recently let the cat out the bag that my sister is going to Europe on the 12th to the 17th. My sister told me she was going to Florida for her high school friend's wedding. She asked if I would be willing to handle watching my niece. I said sure because she's been working late, putting in long hours at work. I pushed our mom and got the truth. She's seen someone, has not told him that she has a kid. He thinks my niece is my kid and she helps me out from time to time. He's met my mom and she seems to really like him. After I found out, I confronted my sister and she apologized. I told her I don't care, she has until January. She told me I was being cold and unfair to her. Since I told her that if she wants to date as a single mother, you have an obligation to be transparent with the people you're dating and tell them that you have a kid. She said she can separate the two, and I told her, no, you can't. You have a daughter, and you can't lie and say she's my kid so you can go have fun and not scare people off. I don't understand the dating scene. Having a kid at 21 with another man that is not in the picture is a huge red flag. I told her so is lying about having a kid. This does not work either way. I asked, does she plan to pretend her daughter is mine forever? She said I'm like a father to my niece anyway. Am I the jerk here? I know this may get harder for my sister, especially since without my support, she can't afford where she lives. She can't afford daycare on Target pay. My mom has told me to do what's best for my niece. She's afraid if she pushes my sister too much, she'll break down. My mom is afraid that what happened to our aunt's daughter will happen to my sister. Not gonna lie, this response from your sister made my skin crawl, and you're definitely not the jerk for realizing that this family dynamic needs to end. More importantly, from the perspective of having been in your niece's shoes many years ago, your sister is going to psychologically and emotionally damage her by treating her as a burden that needs to be hidden from her potential mates so that she doesn't scare them away. This is going to be a tough love situation that will require a lot of fortitude and tact on your part, but you have to find a way to cut your sister loose financially while still being a loving and supportive uncle to your niece. I broke up with the guy because his best friend is a female. So I started seeing this new guy, Beck, a couple of weeks ago. I had known him for a while before we began dating. He's really sweet and awesome, and the first 3 dates we went on were amazing, and I really enjoyed being with him. Here's the problem. He has a very close friend, Kim, who seems to constantly be in the picture. During date number 4, he talked about her a lot. She was somehow the topic of every conversation, and when I tried to change topics, he'd always find a way to drift back to a memory of the two of them shared together. Granted, they grew up together and also dated at some point, so it would make sense that they would have lots of memories and chemistry. He also began telling me about the trip the two of them are planning to take, how they were taking her car, staying at her family's house, etc. I tried to ignore it at first and just let it go, because I too have a close friend of the opposite gender, but we never do anything like what they do. Our relationship is platonic, and the most we ever do is play Xbox together. I asked him to be my date to my brother's wedding since I had a +1. This was after about 2 weeks of dating, and he declined, saying he had already made plans on that day to go bowling with some friends. But after I spoke with a mutual friend of ours, I found out that she was going to be there and that they had set it up together. I was thinking about it for a while, and the more I thought of it, the more it bugged me. So on our last date, I said I didn't want to pursue a relationship anymore. He was confused because I had been acting normal up until this point. He asked me why, and I told him. I said, I'm sorry, but it makes me uncomfortable how close you are with Kim. You talk about her a lot, and she seems to be a big part of your life. And since we're not official, and I would not try and tell you what to do, I'm just gonna walk away because it makes me uncomfortable. He did not take it well. Said I was giving him an ultimatum and trying to force him to choose, and that I was being manipulative. I insisted that I just wasn't okay with it and did not want to date someone who had that kind of relationship with someone who wasn't their girlfriend. We were not officially boyfriend-girlfriend, and I felt that I needed to break things off early before something really hit the fan. Well, I got an Uber home because I didn't want him to drive me. He was fuming. And then later that evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Yup, it was Kim. Kim texted me a paragraph about how Beck was crazy about me and she thinks I'm wrong for judging her when I haven't even met her, and how I hurt him and was being manipulative. I responded saying I did not judge her at all, just that the nature of their friendship did not sit well with me, and I wanted to end things before they got complicated. She responded saying that I need to give him another chance and that maybe me and her should meet so I can see that she isn't a threat and we could even be friends. I didn't respond to her, and shortly after, his mom and my mom texted me telling me that I'm overreacting. It's amassed into a much bigger deal than I had thought it would be. I don't want to be with him or even try again because of how dramatic I feel everyone is being. I've repeatedly been accused of being insecure, among other things, and I literally can't believe it's blown up like this. I'm not an insecure person. I just got a really bad vibe from this situation and didn't want to be a part of it. Am I wrong for this? Should I give him another chance? Should I talk to this girl? Trust your gut. You were an adult here, stated your case, and then everyone else presumed to tell you what you should do. Forget them. You were standing up for yourself and clearly stating that you were uncomfortable. It's not a trick or a game. I think you did everything right here, and you should block all of those people, except your mom, and let things cool off a bit. If it comes up again, you can say that you felt it was off before. Their bullying behavior after you made your point further reinforced that this wasn't right for you. OP. I feel really bad because he was a super great guy and seemed to really like me too. I've had some tough luck with relationships and I really wanted to stay with him, but she bothered me too much. A part of me wants to try, but I know it's stupid and I'll just end up getting hurt. You are not wrong. I'm not a jealous type, but when I see behaviors like blaming it on you to feel a certain way, I know there's something to be careful with. Kim shouldn't have texted you. By doing that, she's giving away how she and Beck don't have any kind of healthy and normal boundaries. If you accept to give him a chance, there's a high chance that it's going to be the dynamic. Every time you fight with Beck, Kim is going to intervene. Every time Beck doesn't like something about you, Kim is going to know. Every time you disagree on something with Beck, Kim is going to agree and they will let you know that. Every time anything happens between you and Beck, Kim is going to be there. I would say a big no to this, and you're in the right to be careful. No one wants drama at the start of a relationship, and the most important thing about this is the fact that he and she will think you are being manipulative when the only thing you're doing is just walking away from a relationship you already see is going to be problematic. Update. I did not respond to Kim, but instead explained things to my mom and she sided with me completely. She told me that Beck had called his mom, who's a former coach of mine, and told her that I yelled at him and tried to manipulate him because I was feeling insecure. He said that I broke up with him when he wouldn't do as I said, and she presumably contacted my mom afterwards. As you will see from my post, this was not true. I told my mom this and described the situation. She understood how I felt and why I left him and said that he sounded like a jerk, and she was happy I didn't bring him to my brother's party for his wedding. I blocked Kim's number and did my best to gently explain to his mom what had really happened, understanding the whole time she'd probably believe her son over me, but surprisingly she didn't. She did say that he genuinely cared about me, and evidently I was a hot topic of conversation for a while before all of this. Said he was crazy about me and was excited to see where our relationship would go. While she admitted her son was immature at times but meant well, she was very nice about all of this, so I appreciated that. I was genuine and understanding. I said that while I understood, I couldn't just ignore the red flags presented to me, and since nothing had changed other than him trying to have other people convince me it's fine, then I made the right decision. She said she understood and that was the end of it, with her at least. The worst with Kim did not end until I almost had to quit my DoorDash job. I primarily deliver to elderly or families with kids, but as I was unloading groceries out front of a house who had only ordered bread, cheese, and bacon, I was a little confused, but mostly just horrified when I realized who it was. Kim had ordered from my line and gotten me to deliver to her house. She somehow found out I was working in her area. I didn't know it was her area, and I guess she did her best to get a hold of me. So yeah, I met her. Not by choice, but I did. She had used her mom's name to place the order. She immediately began questioning me about if I was still talking to Beck, if we were going to get back together, if I had gotten over myself yet. However, her expression just told me she already knew, but was just trying to annoy me in every way possible. Just in general, being an absolute jerk. I was polite at first, until she asked me about getting over myself, to which I asked if she had gotten over the fact that her boyfriend got dumped. She didn't take that well, and didn't take the bag of bacon I was trying to give her. Fine by me, because legally, if a customer declines a product you bring them, you refund them and keep whatever it is, since you usually can't return a food item. So I'm eating some crispy, yummy Freedom bacon as I type. I left and it's been pretty quiet. I have a new date to my brother's wedding party thing, and he's definitely just a friend, but Beck and Kim don't know that, so I'm gonna be posting lots of pictures of us dancing all night. We both planned on this, by the way, and he knows everything, so it's even funnier that way. Beck has been stalking my social media, unliking and unliking posts. He even reported a picture of mine that had me and another guy in it. He'll probably be like this for a while longer and then drop everything, but it's funny to watch. I'm moving on, and overall I'm single and happy. Am I the jerk for telling my cheating wife a day before our daughter's graduation that I would be divorcing her? My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we have a daughter who's 18. She graduated high school a few months ago. Around 6 years ago, I found out that my wife was cheating on me and having an affair, which lasted for a couple of months. I really wanted to divorce, but my wife was really remorseful. She quit her job, she started going to therapy. She promised all reconciliation steps I asked for. Ultimately, I did decide to stay with my wife for her sake and for our family's sake too. For around 5 years, everything was actually going great, and we had date nights, romantic vacations, and we really loved each other. However, on the 6th year, the whole thing resurfaced back on my mind, and I just couldn't get my mind off it. I finally made my decision after a particular line from my sister struck a chord with me. She said, "Would you really want to use the gift of life and spend it with someone who had betrayed you so badly?" She told me this a couple of days before my daughter's graduation, and that's when I finally decided I couldn't do it anymore. A day before my daughter's graduation, I informed my wife of my decision and told her that I would be filing for divorce soon. My wife was shocked, and she cried a lot and told me she would do anything, but I told her that my decision was final. My daughter's graduation in itself was great, and I was really proud of my daughter, and my wife seemed happy too, but my daughter could sense something was wrong and asked me why her mom seemed down and tried to fake a smile. I told her not to worry about it and to just enjoy the day. The next day, however, I told my daughter I would be filing for divorce, and my daughter seemed shocked. She said, "How could I do this to her mom before graduation, and that's why her mom couldn't enjoy the graduation?" I told her it's none of her business, but we'll both always love her regardless. My wife and I are now going through divorce proceedings. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You could have waited a few days. Also, if you were happy, why did you let that line from your sister affect you so much? Are you easily influenced by others? Is the appearance of having always had a perfect marriage so important to you? Isn't the point to get a deeper and deeper understanding of the other person and ourselves? OP. It wasn't just that line, and it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. I was dwelling on it for the past year or so and talking it out with my sister. She told me that it was finally time I put myself first and that I deserved to be with someone who would unconditionally love me, someone who would be there for me through thick and thin, and someone who would never betray me. Are you having a midlife crisis? You forgave her. You waited 6 years. Did a young chick make it so these memories resurfaced? And then you made the graduation about the divorce. Your daughter will forever remember that. Yes, you're the jerk. Update. My daughter called me last night and told me she came across the post I had posted, and after reading my comments, she asked how I could be so cruel to her mom. She then told me she was going to temporarily go low contact with me. I did tell her I know she's going through a lot and I'll always be there for her, but I'll respect her decision to go low contact. So that's not really the best news, but life does move on. This is Exhibit A and how to not handle the situation. You successfully made your cheating wife the victim and gave your daughter every reason to hate you. The specifics of your case appear to be 1. The cheating happened 6 years ago. 2. You asked for specific reconciliation steps, which included your wife quitting her job. She complied. You stayed together for 6 years, seemed happy, had romantic weekends. You believe you both really loved each other during this time. 3. Now after all this reconciliation, you're divorcing. You asked for the divorce just before your daughter's graduation, so it would maximally impact the party that was supposed to be about her. After 6 years, one presumes you could have waited a week. 4. You posted this all on Reddit using a name your daughter could somehow recognize. I'm not surprised your daughter is upset at you for doing this the way you did. And if the behavior you're describing is typical of you, I'm guessing you may end up with a rather frosty relationship with her going forward. You are something of a jerk, and I imagine there's more to this story. So you're the jerk for the way you did things, but good luck with your life. Wow, never thought I'd feel kinda bad for someone with a history as a cheater, but seems his soon-to-be ex-wife did everything he asked. Things were apparently going fine, then his sister struck a chord with him, and all of a sudden 6 years of work isn't enough. And the poor daughter. Talk about tainted memories. My daughter refuses to get a job because it will hurt her social life at school. So my daughter, Sophia, she's 16 and she goes to a private school that a lot of the richer families send their kids to. My wife works there, so we get a huge discount on the price. I would prefer to send the kids to public school, but our school district really sucks, so private school it is. I truly don't like how the kids act at that school. They're really snobby, to be honest. My breaking point for this was when my son sent me a video of my daughter being extremely rude to a fast food worker. My wife and I discussed it, and we agreed that she needed to get a job so she could understand that these people deserve respect and how awful it feels for a customer to be a jerk. So she's been working at Target and dealing with all of the customers. She hates it, and word got around school that she has a job now. This resulted in people not inviting her out like they used to, since they think having a job is lame. My wife wants to let her quit her job, and we got in an argument about it. I think it's better she learns that they were never her friends in the first place, and she should keep her job. My wife thinks I'm an unfair jerk, and Sophia hates me at the moment. Am I the jerk for this? Not the jerk. But as a former food service worker in high school, I believe that everyone should work at least one full year, so you hit all the holidays at least once, as a food service or frontline store worker, so that they're likely to think twice before mistreating staff after that. Maybe do something similar. She has to work for one full year, including full-time over the summer. OP. I agree with that. I remember getting yelled at the movie theater when I was a teenager. I've never been mean to employees since. I know those jobs suck, and I don't want it to be hard on her. Walking in the service worker's shoes is a great way to learn empathy and how your actions affect others that are working. Not the jerk. While it sucks that your daughter isn't going to as many parties, I think you're correct and that they were never her friends if they think it's lame for a 16-year-old to get a job. Stick to your guns. Your daughter needs to learn that while working isn't always fun, it's important. Unlike her so-called friends, she doesn't have rich parents to bankroll her life. Earning and saving now will teach very important lessons that go beyond showing empathy to working people. You're the jerk. She got the job and hated it. The lesson that the people she was mistreating are people too might be able to ring home. If it has negative consequences for her friend group, that might not be what you want. Imagine you catch your mother-in-law intentionally coughing in your Cheetos and she says that she's boosting your immune system. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap and come have a listen. Karen and I are already waiting for you.